Hey everyone, so it had been a very long time. Wow, time flies. Last video I prepared was in the year 2015. So this is an update for the FFM syllabus um, from September 17 to June 18. Now, I noticed that people are still viewing the videos that I had made back in 2015, so I thought, well, since the demand is still there, I'm going to do an update and maybe also to let everyone know. Uh, okay, hi, I'm Wildy Chia, and you're watching this on my YouTube channel, right? So, probably to let everyone know, I no longer teach this program in the institution where I teach at. Actually, as of today, I teach at Kaplan, Singapore. So, uh, that's why you don't really find a lot of updates as such, because I've been assigned to teach the subject of audit and assurance for the ACCA F8 and P7. So as such, you can see that there is not much update for FFM. Anyway, let's get back to the point. For those of you who have been using my video, those that were made in 2015, take note, those are highly applicable in the current syllabus. In fact, for the FIA FFM syllabus, it hardly varied, since the last time when I used to teach this. Let's move on. Okay, for those of you who are doing this for the very first time and you have no idea what this subject is about, you should have watched my video on the FFM revision uh, made back in 2015. It's available on my channel. Watch that first, and this gives you the update, right? So this is the update I'm giving you. So basically, the general scope has remained more or less the same since 2015. The general scope comprises of explain and apply the principles of working capital management. That's exactly the same like back then, right? Apply a range of accounting techniques used to forecast cash within the organization, describe methods and procedures for managing cash balances, explain principles in making medium to long-term financing decisions, explain and apply principles in making capital investment decisions. Finally, describe credit management methods and procedures. So the scope has more or less remained the same, and I've taken this right from the ACCA website, exactly the same. And you know what? I have taught this for so many years, in fact, I think 6 years in total. I find that the syllabus had hardly changed. Anyway, let's move on. In fact, since the last time the ACCA had made a change to the exam structure, which is what you have today, the exam structure had not really changed at all. It had remained the same. Basically, two sections that you need to complete, all compulsory questions. Section A comprises of 10 compulsory MCQs, each carrying 1, 2, or 3 marks each, totaling 20 marks in all. Section B gives you 6 compulsory questions. Question 1, 20 marks. Question 2, 3, and 4 gives you 10 marks each. Question 5 and 6 gives you 15 marks each. Again, this was taken from the ACCA study guide, exactly the same. And interestingly, this has remained the same since the year 2015, when I used to teach this. And probably to give everyone some pointer, typically the question 1 topic tend to be quite detailed, quite comprehensive. Typical topics that occur in question 1 would be like, for example, NPV, net present value, internal rate of return, or it could be something like cash budgeting. Yes, cash budgeting, fairly long question. And you might see sometimes inventory control. If you have seen those past papers um, from the ACCA previously, you'll find that, yeah, they come up about the same most of the time. Okay, again, question 1 normally expect things such as investment appraisal, where you test on NPV, IRR, and then the other would be like perhaps cash budgeting, a very long cash budgeting question. Okay, moving on. Question 2, 3, or 4 are the wildcards. It could be anything, but generally these are the shorter questions. You can find these on the sample paper released by the ACCA, right, on their website, and you find that typically they could be anything to do with financing, computing working capital, some theory on investments, financing, like for example, medium-term financing, what are leases, how do leases compare with hire purchase, and comparing equity versus debt financing. Oh yes, this reminds me. Question 1, you may also be tested on working capital management. Make a note of that. Question 1, again, I repeat, may also test, may also cover a topic such as working capital management, aside from investment appraisal and cash budgeting. Okay, moving back. Okay, now what about questions 5 and 6? Questions 5 and 6 may cover about the same topics as question 2, 3, and 4, right? You may see things such as inventory control, things such as financing, money, the economy, topics like inflation. So these are all rather unpredictable. We can't really spot these, right? In fact, I once told a student that when the ACC had revised the syllabus from 4 compulsory questions to 6 compulsory questions, the ACC had increased the breadth of the syllabus, but had in a way reduced the depth. So basically, you are not expected to study as much in detail compared with previously, but you need to have the breadth in order to make it through these exams. All right, again, let's move on. Okay, core area 1. So working capital management. Main thing is that you must know how to compute your working capital management cycle in days, and you should also be familiar with how to calculate your working capital requirement, right? Which means that you should be very familiar with your working capital ratios like inventory turnover, receivable turnover, payable turnover. Of course, these are supposed to be in days. You should be able to calculate in terms of dollars or days and even weeks, right? Okay, the formulas are already provided in the study kit, so I shall not repeat that again. Inventory control, make sure they are extremely familiar with how to compute the EOQ, economic order quantity. Typically, the formula for EOQ is already provided, but you're not given formulas such as average, let me correct myself. Aside from EOQ, you need to know how to calculate the holding cost and the order cost. Aside from that, you should also be familiar with how to calculate the minimum, maximum, and the reorder level. These are important. Okay, moving on. Another area that occurs from time to time is the just-in-time inventory management system, right? Just-in-time inventory management system is an extremely easy topic. First, you need to know what is GIT. Make sure you know what are the criteria to implement GIT, why you can't implement, and what are the advantages. Very simple, nothing too difficult. You just have to read through the definition and memorize that. Okay, following that is the payable control. Right, make sure that you are able to calculate the annual cost of discounts, right, and annual benefit of discounts. So they are the same. Make sure you know this formula. Okay, I didn't provide it here. It's in your study guide. Okay, but if you need to know how it looks like, just drop me an email. Anyway, so for payables, you need to know like why you can't take too long to pay up, whether you should pay up earlier to enjoy the discount, or not to pay up earlier and forgo the discount, which is better. You should be able to perform a very simple computation to evaluate that. Following that is the receivable control, right? So this is where you need to know these two very important concepts of factoring and invoice discounting. Now these two are different. Okay, now let me just tell you a very obvious difference between the two is that factoring takes over the administration of the receivable ledger, whereas invoice discounting does not. Okay, just remember that, very important. The examiner may at times have such a question in the paper, and it's very easy to score easy marks, not that difficult. Now the challenging part comes where you're asked to perform computation for factoring, whether it is worthwhile to use factoring or it's not worthwhile. You must be able to perform a computation of that type. Okay, I don't have an example here because this is supposed to be an update, not a thorough revision video. Okay, moving on. Now you should also know how the invoice discounting work, in terms of its mechanism. Make sure you know how to define it, and you should obviously know such things as what is confidential invoice discounting, for example, right? And what are the advantages of invoice discounting over factoring, and vice versa. Okay, so that's core area 1. Core area 2, you should understand what are the different sources of cash, right? And in an exam paper, a long time back, the examiner ever had a question like what is the accrual concept of accounting, right? How does it differ from cash accounting? It's a very simple concept, but make sure that you know how to explain that. Okay, next is the cash budgeting. Cash budgeting is a very simple one. Be very familiar with the preparation process. As for forecasting, make sure you know how to prepare the cleared funds forecast. Now the challenging part in the cleared funds forecast is that you need to count the number of days between receiving the check and the day when this check is cleared. very important. It's not a difficult topic, but credit funds forecast can be easy. It's just that if you don't prepare for it, you obviously do badly for it. Okay, so I suggest that you make sure that you invest some time on the credit funds forecast. Core area 3, managing cash balances. Okay, again, uh, 1, treasury function. Not very difficult. Make sure you know the roles of the treasury. What does it do? Such as, for example, fundraising, corporate finance, whatever it is. Okay, next, overview of financial markets. For example, what is the stock market? What's the difference between, like a primary market and a secondary market, for example? Okay, and then you have money market, and then you have the capital markets, right? You should know like roughly what these two are. Okay, I repeat, you should roughly know what's the difference between the capital and the money market, and what are the instruments available, for investing in the capital and money market. Okay, it's very good news that to let you know, if you didn't know it, that you don't have to worry about knowing about the options market and the futures market. These are out of scope, so don't worry about thinking of these two. Or it's mainly the primary and secondary market and the stock market. Those are the essential ones, and of course, capital and money market. Moving on, managing deficit cash balances. How do you manage a negative balance? Simple. Could you use an overdraft? Okay. Could you use trade credit to improve the cash balance? So these are some very simple measures. Moving on, what happens if you have a surplus balance? What do you do with it? How do you invest it? What's the criteria we use for determining whether we want to invest? Simple. Criteria would be like, for example, risk, return, maturity, liquidity. Right? Risk, return, maturity, and liquidity. You should also know what the characteristics of the major capital and money market investment instruments. That's obvious. Right? These do get tested from time to time. Core area 4, financing decisions. Make sure that you're familiar with the money in the economy. What's the concept of inflation? How do you define inflation? How to calculate the real rate of return, for instance. Medium-term financing, not very difficult to guess what's being tested. What's the difference between leasing and hire purchase? Very simple. Long-term financing, how do we compare debt versus equity financing? How do you compare, right? So of course, if you have debt, what's the consequence? If you try to issue equity, what's the consequence? Okay, the next one, financing for SMEs. Okay, and not very difficult to guess what you could be tested for this, right? You should obviously know why do SMEs face such difficulties in fundraising, and how SMEs are usually defined. Okay, to give you a very simple definition, SMEs are typically defined as those that are like family operated, maybe owned by a few friends, and doesn't have much collateral, doesn't have much financial track record. Yep, that's an SME. Okay. Why do they face difficulties in fundraising? The answer is obvious, because they do not have many years of track record. They have not much collateral to provide to the bank, and not forgetting, the banks are risk averse. That's why banks refuse to lend money to SMEs. That's core area 4. Let's come to core area 5. Core area 5 is investment decisions. So what do you have in core area 5? Financing concepts. Make sure you know what's the time value of money. Very simple one. Capital budgeting. Make sure that you know the entire process. Make sure that you familiarize yourself with that. Okay, and if I not remember wrongly, the examiner even had a question on why do you need a post-completion audit? Why is it essential? Okay, then the next part, obviously very important and you can't skip, is capital investment appraisal techniques. The ARR, accounting rate of return, payback period, discounted payback, and net present value, and finally the internal rate of return. Now I have to emphasize to you that do not skip the discounted payback period. It's very simple, it's like normal payback period, just that you have to do some discounting. Okay, you have to apply a discount rate to get the payback period. It's not difficult. Alright, so you can make note of that, very important. Core area 6, credit management. Legal issues, like for example, what makes up a contract. Okay, what are the elements of a contract, consideration, offer, intention to form legal relations, right? And so, and of course acceptance, not forgetting. You should roughly know these. These could be tested in the MCQs. It may also appear in section B, not surprising. Credit granting, monitoring account receivable. Make sure that you know what a receivable aging is, how to read a receivable aging. It's available on an ACCA article. You can actually get it from ACCA. Okay, next is debt collection. What measures can you take to collect money? Right, by sending reminder letters, phone call, personal visits, and you do factoring, send legal letter, and all that. Right, that's debt collection. Okay, you can probably tell that it's very theoretical, and it has a lot of computation, right? All in the same exams. To summarize, the knowledge of theoretical concepts is also key to passing the exams. You have to be well-rounded. You have to be familiar, with the different aspects of the syllabus. Practicing the past year questions, very important. Both Kaplan and BPP have very good revision kits. Right, you shouldn't skip these. The examiner has also emphasized the importance of studying broadly. You shouldn't neglect that. Don't try to skip key areas. Key areas like, for example, capital investment appraisal is obviously a key area. Don't skip them. Practice the MCQs, and as I've mentioned, these are low-hanging fruits. You don't skip them, right? You know what? If you get all the MCQs correct, or maybe except for one wrong, you get 18 to 20 marks. That gives you a very good chance at clearing the exams. You do very well if you perfect your scoring in this area. I hope that that's very that summarizes for you what you must do. Now, one more thing to add is that the importance of practicing your writing skills cannot be emphasized enough. You have to practice writing. That's important. Clarity in writing makes it easier for you to score that 1 mark or 2, right? So go through that past year's exam papers, especially the sample paper available on ACCA website, and work through your revision kits. You're good to go, right? And I hope that this has been informative, and I think I appreciate everyone's support in revisiting my YouTube channel again and again. And I noticed the numbers have grown significantly. I feel bad that I have not done an update for too long, right? But I thank your support. I've never seen such encouraging viewerships. So, but in the meantime, if you wish to support me and my classes, I'm teaching at Kaplan, right, in the paper F8 and P7. So, yeah, if you wish to follow me in this learning journey in audit at the fundamental level and the professional level, please feel free to join me. I'm Wildy Chia once again. I am teaching now at Kaplan Singapore, and deeply appreciate the support, and I wish you all the best in your coming exams. Okay, I know it's long overdue, but again, once more, deeply appreciate the support, and I hope that this had helped you to understand what you must prepare for in your coming exams. All right, good. Thank you, and I wish you a belated Merry Christmas. Depending on when you are watching this, and Happy New Year. Right. Also, again, depending on when you are watching this. Okay. Thank you. So let us keep in touch. If you have any questions, you can drop me an email. Try to help you as best as I can. Right. And take care. Bye bye.